Welcome to MLT 101, Human Anatomy. This is H1 Barnes, and the lesson topic is the vascular system. Your vascular system is the system of blood vessels that, along with your heart, forms a closed loop in which blood circulates to all parts of the body. There are two primary divisions to the vascular system. The pulmonary circulation, which carries blood from the right ventricle of the heart to the lungs to remove carbon dioxide and pick up oxygen, in which the oxygenated blood then returns to the left atrium of the heart. This division of the vascular system flows in what is typically thought of as a backwards direction almost. Usually, it's thought of that arteries deliver oxygen-rich blood to the body. It works in reverse for the pulmonary circulation. Arteries deliver oxygen-poor blood to the lungs so that it picks up fresh oxygen and comes back through the veins to the heart as oxygen-rich blood. This is the only part of the body where the flow works in that direction. It's still going away from the heart in arteries, back to the heart in veins, but the blood that's leaving the heart is deoxygenated, and the blood that's returning to the heart is oxygenated. That is the major difference. For the rest of the body, in systemic circulation, oxygenated blood is carried from the left ventricle of the heart to the body's cells, and then returns to the right atrium of the heart with blood carrying carbon dioxide and waste products from metabolism of those cells. For the rest of the body in systemic circulation, oxygenated blood leaves the heart through the arteries, deoxygenated blood returns to the heart in the veins. The human vascular system is made of varying sizes of veins and arteries. The smallest vessels, and vessels is a generic catch-all term to refer to everything, while veins, arteries, capillaries, those are specific terms that mean specific things. And the smallest vessels, your capillaries, make up approximately 95% of your vascular system. This is referred to as the capillary bed. Arteries are blood vessels that carry blood away from the heart. They have thick walls, thicker than veins, because the blood that moves through them is under high pressure from the contraction of the ventricles. This creates a pulse that you can feel. If you know where to feel on your wrist, you can feel your pulse. If you know where to feel on your neck, you can feel your pulse. If you know where to feel on your upper arm, you can feel your pulse. You can feel the beat of your heart push that blood beat, beat, beat through your body. You can use that to tell apart arteries from veins. The smallest branch of an artery, right before it becomes a capillary, where it joins with the capillaries, is called an arteriole. The largest artery in the body is called the aorta. Veins are blood vessels that return blood to the heart. Veins usually carry blood that is low in oxygen. It's called deoxygenated or oxygen-poor blood, with the exception of the pulmonary vein that carries oxygenated blood from the lungs back to the heart. Because systemic venous blood is deoxygenated, it tends to be darker and a more bluish red color than normal arterial blood. This is not to the point where some person off the street could walk up to blood and tell you this injury, this puddle of blood on the ground is from a vein or an artery. But it is noticeable enough that if I have a tube of venous blood and a tube that was drawn from an artery, arterial blood, and I hold those tubes of blood side by side, the color difference will be noticeable, and I can fairly easily tell you which one is which. But if I just had a random tube of blood and someone were to say, is this venous or is this arterial blood? The extreme majority of people would not be able to tell you that. The walls of veins are thinner than those of arteries because the blood is under less pressure than arterial blood. They don't have to be as thick, so they aren't. Because the walls of veins are thinner, they are more prone to collapse than an artery is. It is much easier to just press on a vein and cut off the blood flow than it is to press on an artery and cut off the blood flow. Blood is kept moving through your veins by skeletal muscle movement and pressure changes in the abdomen and thoracic cavities when you breathe, while the valves prevent the backflow of blood as this happens. The smallest veins at the junction of your capillaries and your veins, where veins and capillaries meet, are called venules. The largest veins in the body are the vena cavae. or if you want to talk about just one, the vena cava. Capillaries are microscopic, one-cell thick vessels that connect your arterioles and your venules. They form a bridge between the arterial circulation and the venous circulation. Blood in your capillaries, because of that, is a mix of both venous blood and arterial blood. And in your systemic circulation, arterial blood delivers oxygen and nutrients to capillaries. The thin capillary walls, and they're thin for a reason, that thinness serves a purpose, allows the exchange of oxygen for carbon dioxide and nutrients for waste from the cells and the blood. Carbon dioxide and wastes are then carried away back to the heart, back to the lungs, in the venous blood in venous circulation. Arteries and veins consist of three main layers. The thickness of these layers will vary depending on the size and type of the blood vessel that you're talking about. The outer layer is called the tunica adventitia. It's made of connective tissue and is thicker in arteries than in veins. That's a trend that is consistent. Arteries have thicker vessel walls than veins do because they're under more pressure. They need it to withstand it. The tunica media is the middle layer of a blood vessel. It's made of smooth muscle tissue and some elastic fibers. Again, it is thicker in arteries than it is in veins. This tunica media gives your body some control, direct control, over your blood pressure. The way that works is, let's say my body needs to raise my blood pressure. If I have a set amount of blood in my body, I'm not bleeding, I'm not drinking water, the amount of blood in my body is not changing. If those vessel walls contract and they squeeze tight and get smaller, it is going to put the blood in those vessels under more pressure. That is going to directly raise my blood pressure. The reverse can also happen. If my blood pressure needs to go down for some reason, those muscles can relax, they can dilate, it will expand the space inside that vessel, and it's the same amount of blood filling a larger vessel, the blood pressure goes down. The tunica intima, the inner layer or the lining of the blood vessel, is made of a single layer of endothelial cells with an underlying basement membrane, a connective tissue layer, and an elastic internal membrane. This tunica intima serves a very important purpose. When it is damaged, underneath the tunica intima is a type of protein that tells your body to clot your blood inside your vessels. At first thought, that sounds like it's a bad thing, but imagine you're out and about, you slip, trip, and fall because you were running with scissors, and you cut yourself with the scissors. That cut will expose the layers underneath the tunica intima, and it will tell your body where to clot the blood to prevent you from bleeding out. The internal space of your blood vessel is called the lumen. That is the space that your blood flows through. Veins, unlike arteries, contain valves. These are one-way valves that allow the blood to only flow through them in one direction. Because of this, when my muscles contract, when I move, that muscle will contract on and next to the veins that are flowing around it and through it, and squeeze on them. If I squeeze a tube that's filled with liquid, it's going to push that liquid through the tube. If there were no valves, some of the blood would flow away from my heart, some of the blood would flow toward my heart, and overall, nothing would get done. Because these valves only allow the blood to flow in one direction, when my muscles contract, it pushes the blood back towards my heart. Some phlebotomy specific anatomy that's useful in the med lab field. The antecubital fossa, antecubital means in front of the elbow, fossa means shallow depression, is the small, shallow depression in the arm that is anterior in front of the bend of the elbow. If you stand up straight in anatomical position with your feet side by side and your palms facing forward, lift up one of your arms in front of you, that little divot in the groove of your elbow right there, where your arm bends, that's the AC, the antecubital fossa. That location is the first choice for venipuncture when we need to draw blood, because there are several major veins in the arm that lie close to the surface in that area. It makes them easier than other locations to draw blood from. These major superficial veins are called antecubital veins. There's two patterns that you are likely to see when working with your patients. They can be arranged in what is called an H or an M-shaped pattern. Realistically, every person has a unique structure for their vascular system, and it's not going to exactly be an M or exactly be an H, but it is a common arrangement to find. When the AC location doesn't work, you do have other options, such as the veins on the back of the hand or the back of the wrist. That's usually the second location to go to. You check the dominant arm, doesn't work. You check the non-dominant arm, nothing there. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to one of the back of the hands. That's another good location to find veins that are very close to the surface. You have to be very careful though. The veins on the side of the wrist above the thumb should not be used because there are nerves close to the surface in that area. If you stab someone's nerve with a needle, it will cause permanent nerve damage, and they may lose sensation. They may lose the ability to move that finger. You don't want to do that. That's also the reason that we don't draw blood from the upper arm near the bicep. The veins on the underside of the wrist are also considered not acceptable for venipuncture. Those are typically reserved for arterial blood draws by trained nursing staff, not for the lab techs or the lab community. Unless you have been specifically trained to perform arterial blood draws from the wrist location, do not perform venipuncture on the underside of someone's wrist.